Greetings and welcome to our summer bonus episodes of the Food Professor podcast. Once again, Sylvain and I are taking a couple of the summer months off to recharge and get ready for our next season. So as the official podcast for the SIAL Food Innovation Show this year in Montreal, Sylvain and I had the opportunity to interview some of the leading thought leaders, brands, and makers in the food industry. As the saying goes, these are their stories. Stay tuned for Season 7 of the Food Professor podcast debuting August 27th. We'll be back on the mic together live with our particular brand of truth, insight, interviews, and yes, a whole lot of fun.
I think we've got ourselves a tradition. I think we need to have Martin Lavoie here on our podcast every year at SIAL.
It's not SIAL without Martin.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And it's not SIAL without geopolitics and trades.
Particularly now.
I mean, we spoke a year ago at SIAL in Toronto. Here we are a year later. A lot has happened. So welcome back to the show, first of all.
Thank you. Yeah. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so thanks. Martin Lavoie, CEO of Groupe Export Québec.
Yep.
And I mean, last night you had a great gala. It was, the place was packed.
Yeah.
Lots of people were in a good mood.
Despite a Canadians game, so congratulations on that. We're just talking about,
But they won.
And they won.
Yeah.
So best of both worlds.
But and as I mentioned, we changed a threat into an opportunity because when we saw that it was not planned, but we decided people are going to leave 10 minutes later, so might as well.
Yeah.
It was right in the invite. The game will be on the screen.
Yeah, exactly. But, we all know things have happened. A lot of things have happened since last April.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think, so the Liberation Day happened like weeks before we met last year, and we just didn't know what was going to happen, how serious it was. The Supreme Court really didn't rule anything yet at the time. So I guess my first question is, how is the sector doing trade-wise? Like, what's your feeling out there?
Actually, the sector is doing good. If you look just for Quebec, our exports continue to grow. Of course, it created a lot of uncertainty. What also I think we've learned, and it's important not to panic in those situations, because it makes sense to have a lot of trade between Canada and the U.S. and the long-standing customers in the U.S. are they're buying Canadian products for a reason, and there was really, I think, no or limited willingness for the on the American side to have those tariffs. So I think after Liberation Day, there was a lot of days of, which product are subject to. We had our retaliation list. So it was complicated to explain, to see, have recommendations of, you're really trying to help Canadian companies as much as possible in this situation. So there's a few months where it was, I think it was bumpy, but really, I think it's important to keep the focus and things. I think as soon as we got back in a CUSMA compliant dynamic, which makes a lot of sense, things have started to be more normal again, and there's still need to do market development for the U.S. market, because actually a lot of companies were impacted by the situation. They've lost customers in the U.S.
Yep.
You lose part of the business, or the new business was much more complicated to.
But it must have been confusing for a while. I mean, a lot of people just didn't know what was going on, because there was so much going on, changes and new tariffs based on a post on True Social. I mean, it was just crazy.
Yeah. No, it was crazy, and I think you have to help companies to be prepared for as best as they can in this kind of situation. But it was, and it's still unpredictable.
Yeah, exactly.
As never seen before.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess like the CUSMA review is about to start. We're hearing a lot about that right now. So what's your what's your impression right now of CUSMA? Some people are saying we're going to be fine. Some others are saying CUSMA is on life support. So how do you see that?
Well, I think I'd like to believe that we are going to be fine because there's what's in the public. I think if you look at a lot of industries, a lot of sectors in the U.S., they are not for tariffs. To dismantle CUSMA would be like a catastrophe for a lot of sectors. We are very integrated. There's replacement products are difficult to find in a lot of sectors. So
for American buyers,
cannot really happen. For American buyers, for us, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And although the pressure is not public in the U.S., I think there's not a whole lot of sectors raising their hand to increase tariffs with Canada. So at some point, this has to kick in, and as soon as the closer we're getting from the review, the period, I think to me the mainstream is that we are going to be fine because that's what the industry wants on both sides of the border.
Yeah,
I mean it's super interesting and it's super hard to kind of parse the signal from the noise sometimes, right? Because we hear, and we've talked about it on the podcast, the Americans side would say, we haven't heard from you guys, you're not negotiating, they throw some bad words at us or whatever, and the Canadians are like, well, we don't like you either, and we're going to try and get a deal. Within all of that, part of your job is trying to figure out what really is happening. You're alluding to that right now. Where at the ground level, there's a lot of businesses who, for all the right reasons, do trade with Canada, and we do trade with America. How do you see the negotiating in the public domain versus in the private domain? Is it moving along to your satisfaction, or can you give us any insight on that?
Well, my understanding is that I guess the negotiation is going to be done at a very high level, if not top level. It's more than
I hear the same thing.
Day-to-day negotiations. So there's that. There's the noise. There's the, just the noise has an impact, and probably
on perceptions.
On perceptions. On where some Canadian business people have moved or are thinking about moving their operation. So. There is an impact just on the words in the public. That's for sure. I think on the real business side is you have to take that with sometimes a grain of salt and keep moving with your strategy and kind of trust the process, because on a lot of occasion, I think the pushback from the industry, from the consumers in the U.S. just made it that they had to set back or to pull back on the intents and what was said publicly. So I think it's really important to sometimes not precipitate actions on the Canadian side. Just wait a bit, really evaluate the impact.
I guess
prepare yourself the best as possible. Also, I think there was a lot contractually. There's a lot of preparation that could be done, or review the contracts. There's some of the advices we gave to companies, like who pays the tariff? Are you the importer on the record? All those things really change the dynamic of who at that time paid for the tariffs.
Counter tariffs going into Canada and vice versa.
Yeah,
exactly. Absolutely. You've been on a mission. Yep. You went to Mexico with the Minister of Agriculture. Diversification is the big word right now, coming out of Ottawa. So, how confident are you in seeing our portfolio of trades shifting a little bit away from the U.S., being less dependent on the U.S. over the next, say, 2 to 5 years?
Yeah. Well, I'm confident, but I think we have to be realistic on the expectations, right? The U.S. is still going to be the largest market. There's a lot of business that will continue there for a lot of reasons. Historically, it's happening because they need a product and they wanted to have Canadian products. So this is going to continue. I think we have to definitely diversify. It's to me the whole thing is a matter of risk management, and I think there's an appetite for a lot of market also to diversify from that that risk.
We talked about that last year,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. But we see it now. You talk about Mexico. I think there's a true appetite also on the Mexican side to diversify, a little bit where the supply is coming from, and not be as dependent on the import side from the U.S. because, if you don't know if it's going to be further escalations.
They could rename a body of water for the next day. You never know, right? They never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
When you and I when we were collectively speaking last year, relations between our country from an export perspective between India and China weren't great. They were pretty bad with India, actually, at this time last year. Are you feeling there's, Carney's gone over, the government's gone over, tried to rebuild that? Are you more optimistic today? Are you seeing some? Are your members and people you represent seeing some daylight?
I think for sure, we're in a better situation globally than we were a year ago. I think being some key sectors being reopened for China, I think it's important for the Canadian sectors. There's 3 other trade deals in the works. So I really think we are in a better situation today, and the diversification to get back to that, we need that kind of agreements and partners where we have a steady, predictable relationship, because diversifying is complicated. There's products that you can aim for Southeast Asia, but the volume that you can ship there, how you can get they're not truckloads going to the U.S. is going to be some pallets of high-end products going to how the transportation, the marketing, all of that, the brand awareness is not the same. So you have to work on the efforts, I think, right away.
And do you sense there's some appetite coming from your members to do the work, the extra work to develop new markets? Or are they still saying, you know what, we're just going to wait it out and focus on the U.S.?
Yeah, there's an appetite for sure. I think if you look at the activities we have in Mexico, we're going to ENTAD in a few weeks, and the interest is definitely there for the participation. Same thing in Europe and other sectors. So the appetite is there, but people are still, they know that the biggest market is still the U.S., and there's also appetite to further develop in the in the U.S. market. So yes, not at all costs, but for us also, I think our job is to propose activities. We've changed the programming. There's a new also agri-marketing program for export diversification. So I think we have to be the organization who's going to make the extra effort to interest the companies in those new markets, because there's a lot of groundwork to be done, and I think we have to be the instigators sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess if there's one thing that you think is missing to get companies to think broadly, more internationally, what would that be? As a Groupe Export?
Yeah, well,
what's it going to take? With all the things that are going on, there's a lot on people's minds. What else is it going to take to get them to think internationally.
Yeah. Well, I think we have different dynamics. Like on commodities, this is different. Like there's products that are traveling much better than others. Those sectors are already more diversified, I would say, than others. But for the high-end, the grocery products, to get the brand awareness in those markets, like we're lacking the volume. So you're working a lot of niche at the same time. So
right.
to get the impact of this, and there's a lot of great progress, a lot of great stories of some. I was in Singapore last week for FHA Food Hotel Asia for the region. So there's a lot of interest to try things, but it is going to the products that we're sending in the U.S. It's going to take a lot of time and effort to get them there. Logistics is also going to be an issue to me. Like we are geared, the production is geared to export by trucks to the U.S. market. So you can control that. So you can have your own trucks. You need drivers, and you go across the border. You can control that. Once you get to you're exporting more on the east and west through the ocean.
You need a port. You need a port strategy.
You
need boats. You need a lot of things.
You need to be competitive. Really, you need full loads, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about product where, like even maple syrup to Southeast Asia, rarely going by full containers. So you have to mix. You have to work on logistic solutions.
To make
you have
it
to
work
consolidation over here in the markets and distribution. So it's really a totally different beast.
Yeah.
Than just sending truckloads to... and we have our infrastructure also in Canada that it is going to be important to further develop, like ports, roads.
I was going to ask you, are you happy with the level of attention on our port infrastructure investment or stated investment? Are you guys happy with where we sit today? I mean, the Port of Montreal is getting... a big investment. I think it's the wrong side of might be the wrong side of the country, but how are you feeling about it?
I think the part of the investment, I think it's great, it's positive, and we have to do it because I'm just talking about the agri-food sector, but all other sectors are also in the mindset of diversification. So ports should have more traffic in the future. But to me, also the important part is all the labor contracts.
Yeah.
There has been a lot of disruption.
Labor disputes.
In ports,
rail.
West Coast, East Coast, rail. So this is when I was saying, like, you have the control on trucking to the U.S. or to Mexico. If you're exporting to Europe or Asia, and you don't control that part, like so, this is getting it a lot more complicated. So I think that it should be. We should have the vision that this is something. I think that has to be fixed. Before Anuga, we had a short mission with FCC and CETAC in the Netherlands, just to look at all the innovation and all of that. And you look at the model there, they're exporting a lot for a small country. If you look at the numbers, it's okay. That's
impressive.
Crazy. It's impressive. But also,
I believe they export more produce than the U.S., don't they?
Yes, but then you're looking at the stats, but then if you dig a little bit, then you realize there's I think over $10 billion dollars in flower exports. So you say, oh, this must be all the tulips. But it's also a lot of roses from Kenya that are coming in. They have the infrastructure at the Schiphol airport, and it's reshipped. A lot of imports, because the port infrastructure is so efficient that it gets there and it's re-exported in Europe. But sometimes there's not. There's great companies in the Netherlands. It's a great sector, but there's also a lot of in and out just because of the quality of the infrastructures.
Interesting.
Right? Or like a basic process on the products, and then I think a lot of the cacao is coming in and could be crushed and then goes to Belgium, France, or Switzerland. So there's a lot of it is happening because of the quality of the logistical infrastructure for port, for warehouses, and everything. So it is a competitive advantage, and the stability is so important.
I guess my last question is, so how do you see the world today in terms of potential markets? Could you give us your wish list in terms of areas or regions where you see the most potential growth for your exporters as a Groupe Export group in Quebec? So is it Asia? Is it Europe? Is it Latin America? Where do you think you should spend more time?
Well, I think it is somehow all of these answers, because it really depends on the type of product, the commodities. So I think there's a lot of talk on trade also between provinces. I think this is important. No, but
of course it is.
We've there's the question of the barriers. Sometimes inter-provincial trade. To me, what was more key is one is like the willingness to do it, the cost, infrastructure also on the road. It's much harder to get products to Calgary from Montreal than to New York City. It's more costly, and the price of fuel right now it's going to be even more costly. So I think there's more to be done nationally for sure. I think.
What's your level of optimism around that? I mean, we were pretty optimistic together last year. We had a mission together to do that, but we've seen little to no progress. Maybe a bit on wine and a little bit here and there, but
there's a progress on regulations on wine, and I think on spirit there's things coming. But to me, it's more about making it possible economically. I think this is also a matter of the choice of the retailers to buy Canadian products versus important product. This is probably more important than regulations to me, because products that can be usually exported to the U.S. can go to other provinces, right? So that's not the, but that's a starting point. I think Mexico, to me, is a huge opportunity. Transportation is easier, but also there's a willingness there to replace U.S. product. Also, I think you bring a lot more the possibilities for a lot more product is there in the Mexican market. Like I think I was telling you that last year, but if you were exporting sugar pies to the U.S. By the truckloads, maybe you want to diversify, but where are you going to go?
Exactly.
Where are you going to go with this? So there's a lot of products like this that, yes,
it's a practical question.
But I think you have to aim for the Mexican market. It was really highly dependent on U.S. imports. So I think this is our number one opportunities, and I think on both sides. And then I think we can do more in Japan, in Korea, Southeast Asia, and Europe, of course. I think on both sides there's also we see more opening to Canadian products.
Right.
I think in the last year we can say that internationally, the image of Canada has been great. You know, that's one thing.
Do you think it's gone up?
Yeah, I really think so.
We've always had a good reputation for safety.
Food.
Yeah,
the reputation is very
but the
good.
brand Canada feels like. Do you think it's improved?
Yes, I do. I mean, the quality has always been there, but just on the feeling of the, the overall situation, I think there's there's definitely a sympathy for the Canadian situation. No, but that's true.
Can we get a deal?
No, but then okay.
Sorry about your neighbor.
Yeah, but this is kind of an opening. But then, of course, you have to be competitive, and it has to make sense.
But we just
completed
completed a survey with M&P on Canada's reputation in the agri-food sector, and we compared Canada's reputation with the other G20 countries.
Yeah.
And Canada is a top-tier country.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say it's the first top country. Actually, the Netherlands is number one.
Yeah.
But Canada is a top-tier country.
Yeah. No, we are there on the reputation, and then I think worldwide there's a willingness to manage the risk.
Yeah.
Before just diversification for diversification, to me this is a risk management exercise, and a lot of importers are looking into it. So this. We definitely feel it. The appetite for Canadian product, I think, is really good.
Yeah.
So then we have to make sure that we take advantage of the opportunities. But it is not easy, because the time you need to explore, to develop markets in Southeast Asia, for example. There's a time difference. There's the size of the market,
language, standards.
And you have to, when I say you have to keep the right focus, is you continue that, but you have to think that if you look, 20 years down the road, the largest world economies are going to be. In
in Asia, Southeast Asia.
So you look at India, China,
Indonesia,
U.S. and Indonesia as the fourth one. So there's not opportunities in Indonesia for everyone, but there's definitely opportunities there, and I think you have to look at the future. And we haven't even touched Africa yet, which is maybe further down the road, but it's going to be
20% of the world population.
Yeah,
soon.
exactly.
Yeah.
So you have to look at that. But for small companies, this is a lot of extra efforts, resources. There's costs increasing everywhere. There's time, because you want to diversify, but you need to have a plan and priorities. And as I mentioned, I think, to me, still, maybe it doesn't sound as ambitious, but Mexico, rest of Canada should be your starting point for a lot of products, and then I think Asia and Europe. You have to be open, and which is I think is great in international trade shows like this, because you don't need to travel. Right,
exactly.
Everywhere.
You don't need a passport.
You can do the work. You can come to SIAL Canada. You can go to SIAL Paris, to Anuga, and work the South African market, or market in Southeast Asia that you wouldn't travel to, but sometimes you go there and you do business worldwide. But I think we have to be out there. If you look at the other countries, European. Processors, they are out there promoting our products, so we have to do
the Irish are very good at that. Enterprise Ireland, the IDA. Now for those listeners who may not be as familiar with your organization and say, hey, maybe they can help me, what kind of last words, what help do you offer to Quebec businesses in terms of export, and how do they get in touch with you, and what's the first step for them?
Well, we the Association of Quebec Exporters. We do several trade shows, trade mission, say over between 30 and 40 trade shows per year, and a lot of different continents, a lot in Canada, U.S., Europe, Asia, Mexico.
You provide a lot of support for companies looking for new markets.
Exactly. So we do that. We have also a shipping platform. We have regulatory services for all the food labeling that we provide. There's training, of course. So all kind of service, market information. We go sometimes in really specific market data that would normally be quite expensive for companies, but when you pool them, it makes more sense. So a lot of service like that, like we for Quebec companies, is just to get in touch with the team at Groupe Export, and we will also evaluate sometimes if the company is ready to export. And the first step, because we're covering also out of Quebec trade, so sometimes for a lot of the Ontarian market is the Maritimes. That would be the first step, but you gotta stop. You gotta
start somewhere, right?
Somewhere. And I think it actually makes sense to unless you have a product that is super niche that will go to super high-end market. I think that's the proper steps to follow.
And I've been at some of your events of last year, and they're great because they reassure people, they encourage people, they're inspiring to get companies to think differently about their market outside Quebec, outside of Canada. So, absolutely. And you had some great folks from all over the world that actually come to Quebec to talk to our exporters. It's great.
No, that's... I think you have to... I think also, like, to me, the inspiration and sometimes, you target markets that... that maybe, or you wonder, like, so how many companies are going to follow you there if you but sometimes it's a leap of faith, but I think you have to be kind of the inspiration or instigator, because sometimes, and like I said, I was in Singapore last week, and you have companies just going for like exploration,
a reconnaissance
and then what
trip.
they're coming back with is great, and it's sometimes it just helps to just align your strategy, understand, okay, maybe my focus is there, makes it real, and you realize that outside of here, like, the world is huge and the opportunities are huge, and actually there's a lot of money.
People eat elsewhere.
They eat, and there's a lot of people.
Yeah.
So
and there's a lot of them. Well, Martin, it's been such a treat to have you back on the microphone. It's such a dynamic environment. I can't think of anyone better to help our listeners understand the opportunities, and thank you so much on behalf of Sylvain and I for joining us here live in SIAL at the Food Professor Podcast.
Great. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for tuning into our SIAL Summer Bonus Interview Series. We'll be back live on the microphone together in late August. I'm Michael LeBlanc, media entrepreneur. Have a safe summer, everyone. Safe travels. And as my partner Sylvain Charlebois is fond of saying, take care.